Okay, ready to dive in. Today we're tackling decisions, those big ones we all face.
Yeah, the ones that keep you up at night.
Exactly, and we've got a fascinating mix of sources to unpack here.
Oh, yeah, that's a big good one.
Tony Robbins with his motivational approach.
Always good for a kick in the pants.
Right, then Mark Manson digging into those cognitive biases.
Love his stuff, always makes you think.
And then some solid research-backed advice from Psych Central for good measure.
A nice balance there.
So our mission today,
Our mission, should we choose to accept it?
exactly, is to equip you, the listener, with a framework for facing those tough choices.
Because let's face it, we all struggle with this stuff.
Whether it's career changes, relationships, or even just what to eat for dinner.
Decisions.
And one thing that jumps out from all these sources
is that avoiding decisions is the worst decision of all.
right. It's like that saying, not choosing is still a choice.
Exactly, and our experts really drive that point home.
Robbins especially, he's not just saying inaction is bad.
He's saying it's a decision in itself, often the most damaging one,
It's like hitting the pause button on your life.
when you really need to be hit in play.
I love how he frames even those what was I thinking decisions
The ones we look back on and cringe.
as valuable. They're like tuition payments in the school of life.
Yeah, you learn what not to do next time.
But how do we escape that fear of making the wrong choice in the first place?
Especially with those life-altering decisions. You know, the ones with higher stakes.
Right, like Manson points out, we crave certainty.
But life is anything but certain.
So how do we embrace that uncertainty without letting it paralyze us?
Well, both Robbins and Manson suggest something surprisingly simple.
Okay,
I'm intrigued.
write it down.
Really? Just grab a pen and paper.
Or open up a doc on your laptop, whatever works for you.
Okay, but why is that so powerful?
Well, Robbins talks about how it stops that mental looping.
Those endless what-if scenarios.
Yeah, writing forces us to focus, and it often reveals hidden emotions.
Like stuff we didn't even realize was influencing us. Exactly. It's like shining a light on those subconscious factors.
Manson adds that writing makes those abstract worries more concrete,
You go from swirling thoughts to a tangible list.
and that can help you spot contradictions or hidden motives driving your decisions.
Let's say you're wrestling with a job change. You make that classic pros and cons list,
In there.
but in the process, you uncover this deep-seated fear of failure,
That you hadn't even acknowledged.
or maybe a longing for work-life balance you'd been pushing aside.
So it's not just about listing the obvious.
It's about unearthing those deeper layers,
Which brings us to values.
our inner compass.
Robbins argues that making decisions, especially the tough ones,
Forces us to get clear on what really matters most.
to us as individuals.
Exactly. It's about defining our priorities. What are we willing to sacrifice?
And what are those non-negotiables?
Manson takes this even further.
Oh, how so?
He says we need to go beyond those basic pros and cons
Okay, interesting.
and ask ourselves, what are the underlying values driving my choices?
It's like getting to the heart of why those decisions can feel so agonizing.
Because they force us to confront those deeper truths about ourselves.
I love this question Manson poses, and I'd love to hear what you, the listener, think.
Hit us with it.
If you had to give up either career success or close relationships for the next 10 years,
Ooh, that's a tough one.
which would you choose and why?
Really makes you think about what truly holds the most weight in your life.
And it might not be what you initially assume.
Right, there could be some surprises there.
Now, of course, we can't talk about tough decisions without addressing fear.
The big F.
It can be completely paralyzing.
For sure. But Robbins has a really interesting perspective on this.
Okay, I'm listening.
He says fear is often masking deeper desires.
Okay, that's a new way to look at it.
He challenges us to ask, is this decision a must for reaching my goals?
So it's about reframing that fear.
Making it work for you instead of against you.
I like that. And Psych Central offers some solid advice here, too.
Lay it on us.
Normalize failure.
It's going to happen.
It's part of life. It's how we learn and grow.
Nobody sails through life without hitting a few storms.
The key is to learn how to weather those storms.
Exactly. And that's where the idea of radical acceptance comes in.
Okay, tell me more about that.
It's acknowledging that bad outcomes might happen.
It's not about being pessimistic.
It's about mentally preparing yourself so you can handle whatever comes your way.
So we've talked about fear and failure, but what about those sneaky mental biases?
Ones that can totally trip us up.
Manson goes deep on this.
Oh yeah, he's got a whole arsenal of them.
Confirmation bias, sunk cost fallacy, overconfidence.
We've all fallen prey to these at some point.
They can seriously derail our choices.
Imagine staying in a dead-end job just because you've put in years there.
Classic sunk cost fallacy.
Or only reading news that reinforces your political views.
Textbook confirmation bias. So how do we combat these mental gremlins?
Manson stresses the importance of seeking out diverse perspectives.
It's about challenging our own beliefs, forcing ourselves to consider alternative viewpoints.
Don't let those brains get lazy.
Gotta keep those critical thinking skills sharp.
Absolutely.
But what about that gut feeling intuition?
The age-old debate.
When should we trust it?
That's a tricky one.
It feels like there's no easy answer.
Well, Psych Central points out that while our gut is informed by our experiences,
So it's not just random.
right, but it can also be swayed by those biases we were talking about.
So how do we know when to listen to it?
Manson says intuition works best when we've already done our homework,
Meaning,
explored our values, identified potential biases, gathered information.
so it's not about blindly following a hunch.
It's about using it as one piece of the puzzle, along with all those other factors.
Think about a time you went against your gut feeling and ended up regretting it.
Oof. Yeah, we've all been there.
What happened? What would you do differently now?
It's a good question for all of us to reflect on.
We've covered so much already, but Manson introduces another interesting concept.
Hit me with it.
Maximizers versus satisficers.
Ah, yes, the two camps of decision makers.
Maximizers are always on the quest for the absolute best option.
While satisficers are content with good enough,
It's like finding a parking spot where you circle the block for ages.
or park a bit further away and get some extra steps in.
It really reflects your decision-making style.
And knowing which one you are can help you adjust your approach for better outcomes.
So if you're a natural maximizer, you might need to set some limits on research and deliberation.
To avoid getting stuck in analysis paralysis,
We've talked a lot about the mental and emotional side of decision-making.
the internal wrestling match,
But what about actually taking action?
putting those decisions into motion.
Psych Central emphasizes deadlines.
Yeah, schedule it in. Beat that procrastination monster.
And Manson adds that action breeds momentum.
Chance encounters and unexpected opportunities pop up when we start moving.
It's not just about making the decision.
It's about taking the leap.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Tell me more.
Each decision we make opens up a whole new set of choices.
It's like a chain reaction.
We're not just making a single decision.
We're setting a whole course of events in motion.
That's both exciting and a little daunting.
It definitely highlights the importance of mindful decision-making.
You know, reading through the Psych Central article, one thing that stood out to me.
Oh yeah, what's that?
They mentioned that sometimes struggling with decisions
Even small ones.
can be a sign of something deeper going on.
Interesting. Tell me more.
They talk about it potentially being a symptom of an underlying mental health condition,
That makes sense, actually.
like anxiety, ADHD, depression, even substance use disorder.
Those can definitely impact our ability to make choices.
So for our listener out there, if you find yourself consistently struggling with decisions,
Big or small.
it might be worth considering if there's something more going on beneath the surface.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Seeking professional help can provide invaluable support and strategies.
It's a good reminder that self-care and mental well-being,
They're the foundation for effective decision-making.
it's like trying to drive a car with a flat tire.
You might get there eventually,
Mhm.
but it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. The importance of values,
Recognizing those biases,
trusting our gut sometimes.
and even the role of mental health.
If we had to boil all this wisdom down to a few key takeaways,
For our lovely listeners,
what would you say are the most important things to remember?
that's a great question.
Let's see if we can distill it down to the essentials.
Well, first and foremost, recognizing that decision-making is a process.
Not a destination.
Right. There's no magic formula, and it's often messy and uncomfortable.
Embracing the messiness is key, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can't let that fear of making the wrong choice paralyze us.
And that's where those tools we've been discussing come in.
Writing things down, examining our values, understanding our biases
All those things can help us navigate that uncertainty.
with more clarity and confidence.
And remembering that each decision, even the ones we might regret later,
They're learning opportunities.
we're always evolving and our decision-making skills evolve right along with us.
I love that perspective. It takes the pressure off striving for perfection.
Encourages us to approach decisions with a growth mindset.
Exactly.
But let's be real, even with the best tools and strategies.
Sometimes those big decisions can feel completely overwhelming,
So what advice would you give to someone who's feeling totally stuck?
paralyzed by indecision.
Like they're frozen in the headlights.
If you're feeling that way, I think the most important thing is to break it down
Break it down.
into smaller, more manageable steps.
Kind of like eating an elephant one bite at a time.
Exactly, instead of trying to solve the entire puzzle at once.
Just focus on that next step.
Identify the very next action you can take.
So if you're debating a career change
The first step might be updating your resume.
or reaching out to someone in your desired field,
Just to chat, get some insights.
80 steps
Right, and those small actions, they create momentum.
often lead to unexpected insights and opportunities.
Sometimes just taking that initial step is enough to break the cycle of indecision.
Get you moving in a direction, any direction.
And it's crucial to be patient with yourself through this process.
Big decisions often take time to unfold.
It's okay to feel uncertain, even a little scared.
It's all part of the journey.
And remember, you don't have to go through it alone.
Right, reach out to trusted friends, family, or even a therapist.
Sometimes just talking things through with someone you trust.
Can provide invaluable clarity and perspective.
Absolutely.
You know, circling back to something Tony Robbins said that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah. I love his stuff.
The idea that decision-making clarifies what truly matters most to you.
That's such a powerful insight.
It's not just about picking the right option.
It's about aligning our choices with our deepest values and aspirations.
It's about defining who we are and the kind of life we want to create.
And that's a journey that unfolds throughout our lives, decision by decision.
So it's not just about making the right choice.
It's about making choices that move us closer to becoming the people we want to be. Beautifully put.
And that brings us back to Mark Manson's emphasis on values.
Our inner compass,
He argues that our values are like a guide.
guiding our decision-making,
He even suggests that the process of making those tough decisions,
can help us clarify those values.
so like those values are buried deep within us,
And it's through grappling with those choices that they surface.
become more defined.
So even if the decision itself doesn't turn out perfectly,
The process of wrestling with it can be incredibly valuable for personal growth.
I love that reframing,
It takes the pressure off finding the right answer.
and shifts the focus to the journey of self-discovery.
That's woven into decision-making.
Exactly.
And that journey is unique for each individual.
What might be the right choice for one person,
Could be completely wrong for another.
based on their values, their
What
experiences.
if there's no one-size-fits-all approach to decision-making?
Yep.
It's about finding what works for you.
Absolutely.
And that might involve a blend of intuition, logic, research.
And maybe even a little bit of faith.
Absolutely. And it's about being willing to experiment, to make mistakes, to learn from each experience. That's how we grow.
So it's not about avoiding difficult decisions
It's about embracing them.
as opportunities for growth and self-discovery.
And that's a pretty empowering perspective, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It takes the fear out of decision-making and reframes it as an adventure.
And who knows what amazing discoveries await us along the way.
Speaking of discoveries, I think it's time to wrap up this part of our deep dive
Okay, sounds good.
and offer our listener a final thought to ponder.
I like where this is going.
As we wrap up this deep dive into decision-making, I'd love for you to consider something as you go through your day. Pay attention to even those tiny choices you make. What to eat, which route to take to work, how to respond to that text message.
It's like those small decisions are whispering something to us.
Exactly, and they can reveal so much about our values, our biases, our default decision-making style.
It's like a hidden language we speak through our choices.
I love that, and I think it's such a valuable takeaway for our listeners. This isn't just about those big life-altering decisions. It's about cultivating a mindful awareness of how we make choices every single day.
Because those small choices, they add up.
They create the tapestry of our lives.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've covered a lot of ground exploring those emotional hurdles, unpacking those tricky cognitive biases.
Emphasizing the power of taking action.
And remember, there's no single right answer, no magic formula.
It's about finding what works for you.
Whether it's writing things down, setting deadlines, or simply normalizing failure, there are tools here that can help you navigate those decisions.
More effectively with more confidence.
And don't be afraid to reach out for support. Lean on your network of trusted friends and family, or consider seeking professional guidance if you're feeling stuck.
Having someone to talk it through with can make a world of difference.
The most important thing is to find what works for you. And remember, decision-making is a journey, not a destination.
And as you continue on that journey, we'll leave you with this final thought.
Embrace those decisions, big and small, as opportunities for growth and self-discovery.
They're not something to be feared.
But rather stepping stones on the path to becoming the best version of yourself.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep making those courageous choices.
So as we wrap up, think about this. Those tiny decisions we make every day, they reveal a lot about us.
Like what?
What we eat, what route we take to work, how we respond to a text message.
It's like those choices are speaking a hidden language.
Exactly. And that language tells us about our values, our biases, even our decision-making style.
So it's not just about the big decisions.
Right. It's about cultivating a mindful awareness of those everyday choices.
Because those little choices add up. They shape our lives.
They really do. So as we close out this deep dive into decision-making, what are the key takeaways for you, the listener?
Well, we've explored a lot, haven't we? Those emotional hurdles, those sneaky cognitive biases.
And the power of taking action.
We've woven together insights from Tony Robbins, Mark Manson, Psych Central.
Offering a multifaceted perspective on how to approach decisions with more confidence.
And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. No magic formula.
It's about finding what works for you.
Experimenting, learning from your experiences.
And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Lean on your friends, your family, a therapist.
The most important thing is to find what works for you. And remember, decision-making is a journey.
Not a destination.
So embrace those decisions, big and small, as opportunities for growth.
They're not something to fear.
They're stepping stones on the path to becoming the best version of yourself.
Keep diving deep.
Yeah.
Keep making those courageous choices. And we'll see you next time.